What have I done? I don't know how this is gonna sound. Probably terrible. Yeah, we'll be working on that. Greetings and welcome to an LGR update that I've wanted to make for well over a decade now. Dreamed about, having my own LGR space, a big workshop, or even just any kind of workshop. Didn't even need to be big. This has grown in scope as I've gone into this project, but the past several months now in the background have been me and contractors and builders and designers and stuff putting all this together, and it's been a heck of a thing. So I'd just like to show you what we have so far, then what's going to be happening going forward, hopefully, and then a little bit more detail into the context of why all this came to be after that. But this isn't necessarily going to be where I'm going to be filming everything. Let me just show you a little bit more of what I mean here. Yeah, the whole idea of this, right, is just to get out of renting. I am so tired of paying over $900 in storage fees, which I've been doing for way too long. I mean, even before the whole having to move out of my house and put stuff back in storage because of the storm. Oh my goodness. So that's been the whole thing. The whole idea of this, number one, is to get all of the LGR stuff out of storage finally and stop paying those rental fees. And I've just got my own space. Put things in here, and then that'll be done paying $900+ a month for all these storage units, which is just ridiculous, but it's been necessary for a little while. But this is only, part one of it. It was just getting the building ready. There's gonna be a lot more to come after this, but let's get into that. Yeah, so here is a general overview of the space. 1,800 square feet. A big old concrete slab, metal building with insulation of a few inches of this closed cell spray foam. And so I think the R value is like R20 or something like that. They said pretty darn good. I think it's actually better than parts of my house. At the moment, it's actually doing a very good job of keeping it nice and cool in here. Like, it's definitely a lot cooler in here than it is outside. This is kind of the weak spot. This is like radiating heat when it gets nice and warm out there, or radiating cool. But it's also not like the worst. I'm gonna replace some of the seals in here and try to get that going a little bit better. But that's just kind of the nature of this type of garage door for the most extreme temperatures, which I haven't even had to use these yet. But yeah, we have a couple of 2-ton Durastar mini split units. For 1,800 square feet, this should be plenty, especially because I really just want to knock off like the worst of any kind of extreme weather type of things. I don't want it to be too hot or too cold, just somewhere generally in the middle to where it's not going to really mess up any of the stuff that I plan to store in here, computers and software and manuals and things like that that are going to be susceptible to crazy changes in temperature. But yeah, like I've already had some over 80-degree days here in 2026 in February and March, and it was like 82 outside and stayed like 73 in here. So pretty happy with that. Like it seriously does feel cooler when it's warmer outside and warmer when it's cooler outside. Insulation is doing a better job just on its own than I thought it would. But yeah, otherwise we have just some basic electrical stuff here at the moment. So going along the ceiling, all along the walls, we have these things, and I'm going to be expanding that a fair bit as we start getting into building out the things that I want to put in here. So let's go ahead and talk about that. So right now, the main idea is to have pretty much this entire far half of it be all storage. So just floor to ceiling shelving of some kind. Still coming up with that. All along the walls, and then probably all along that wall, maybe some over there too. And then in the middle, just rows of shelves, kind of a library situation of shelves. And the opposite side here, this will obviously be kind of a loading and unloading situation, whether it's just in my car or maybe I get a van or something, taking things to and from storage at first, but then once things are out of storage, being able to bring things in that might get shipped to me and doing that kind of stuff again, or getting things prepared and packed up and driving off to a vintage computer festival, things like that. I've just always wanted a nice unloading and a loading space garage situation for LGR, and I've never had that, so that'll be great. And I'll come up to right about here, so that's I think 20 feet. And then Over here will be, I think, probably some kind of a workshop situation, either this side or this side. And then whichever the opposite side of that is, I want to have some tables just to lay out systems and have them pretty continually set up. And of course, add more, shelving probably behind there. I don't know exactly what's going to happen in this middle section yet. I mean, who knows? This is nice to have options for nothing. But yeah, over here is going to be the new office area or something like that. Somewhere to film a set for sure. So basically, this whole area over here, all the way down to there, and like that. And then it'll go up, 7 or 8 feet, probably 7 feet, like a lower ceiling in there so I can more easily reach it to mount things to it, like lighting and such. And then once I get that just basically framed in, I am very much going to be filling it with old school wood grain paneling from the 70s, 80s. I've always wanted that look. I have a lot of them already that I bought for what I was going to be making like a retro room in my house. I never got around to that. So I'd like to put that in here, and then they'll figure out all the other stuff in terms of lighting and soundproofing and electrification. I'm going to be tapping into this, and we've got a separate circuit that's going to be dedicated just to this. And then because of the height, I'd like to put just a little bit of a loft and, be even more storage. And again, don't know what this middle space is going to be yet, but hey, room to expand. I just have this over here as a kind of an example of how ridiculous of a space this is, right? Because this is just the normal little workbench that I used. Where's the thing? Yeah, at my rental. And this took up a whole substantial corner of the room. I filmed everything here pretty much from the end of 2024 through most of 2025, really, on this one little table. And it looks, it is tiny compared to the space. So yeah, if I have even just double that, that would be amazing, to have set up for different projects and to film on. I'm so excited for this. So yeah, that's the gist of it. It's an 1,800 square foot place, 30 by 60 feet, and almost 16 feet up to the ceiling there, at least right in the middle. It's 12-foot walls. And so this whole thing is, it's a bit more than what I initially wanted to do. You might remember that I did an LGR update sometime maybe at the end of 2025 or something. I don't actually remember what it was. Anyway, there was an LGR update talking about the future of the channel and how I wanted to build a workshop. And at that point, it was just going to be, I think, a 20 by 30 space. That was what I was looking at. And as I started looking at the land and what I had going on here and what was really available, not only financially, but feasibly with zoning and all these other kind of permits and things that you have to get this thing going on a residential area. I was happy to find that, hey, I could do up to 30 by 60 pretty feasibly. And so I figured, hey, why not? I'd rather have a little bit more room to expand into rather than just go with what I think is going to make sense right now, because in theory, ideally, the channel is going to continue to grow and expand and all that kind of stuff. So I figured, why not plan for the best? As for planning, if you're curious about what went into all that, let's go into all that, or at least a simplified version. This idea has been in the back of my mind for 10 or 11 years now, at least. I may recall back in 2014-15, I started renting a storage unit, not only to store a good chunk of LGR stuff for videos, but also to film inside, which I did for a couple years. And my whole idea was to separate home and work, attempting to keep most LGR stuff out of the house and trying for some kind of work-life balance, and it worked well until it didn't. The channel was growing fast, and the collection was growing even faster, with donations and eBay purchases and thrifting finds and all kinds of things coming in all the time. And that one storage unit turned into 2, which became 3, then 4, and you get the idea. So I moved into my current house in 2022 and purposely picked that place for its big basement to get everything out of storage. But hurricanes happened and the house was destroyed and everything went back into storage, that whole deal. So yeah, as soon as my home was rebuilt last year, I got to talking to those same contractors about building an LGR space on my property, because they were doing good work and they were already there. And honestly, Hurricane Helene kind of made my choice for me in terms of where a building would go. There were 50 trees that came down in one spot, and so it was mostly empty at that point. Now, we did have to cut down a few more trees, and yes, there are still other nearby trees that stand in the area, but I took down anything that me and some tree people thought looked problematic and trimmed back all of the limbs of what's left. It's something that I continue to stay on top of, trust me. I'm out there taking notes every single time the wind blows. I'm very much paranoid. But yeah, once we got city permission to start, there's no HOA here, thankfully, they made quick work of grading the land in late October 2025 with my giant skeleton keeping an eye on things. Then they set out the frame for the concrete slab and poured a ton of gravel, like maybe legitimately a ton. I'm not sure, it was a lot. Then they covered that up with a barrier and got right to pouring an absolute buttload of concrete, making an 8-inch slab, I think it was. There's plenty for what I need. It only took them like a day, but good grief, it was a full day from sunrise to sunset and well into the dark hours. They were working hard till almost midnight that first day and returned quickly the next morning to finish up the surface and later sealed it up too. But that was it for a while. With the holidays and weather getting in the way, the metal building components weren't ready and definitely weren't able to be installed till a few months later in February 2026. And then once they were ready to go, they again made quick work of things. My time-lapse camera wasn't actually on for the first couple hours accidentally, but you can see the frame going up in the background on my LGR Birds live stream. And now here's the rest of it once I got the camera going. It really only took the crew a couple days to put up the entire core of the building, from the metal frame to the vapor barriers to the outer walls, the roof, and all the doors. And yeah, after that, it was a matter of insulation, gutters, and electrical. The latter two were pretty straightforward. They just ran lines underground over to my house and set up a dedicated panel for the building inside the building. And the gutters are gutters. They drain downhill in underground pipes. Now, the insulation, I went back and forth on several options because I didn't want to spend a fortune, but I also didn't want to skimp out. So vintage computer stuff that I might be put in here, it's vulnerable to frequent temperature and humidity changes. And in the end, for this type of metal building, this climate, my own needs, or what I think I'm going to need for all the things that are going inside here, is closed cell spray foam made sense, and I'm happy with how plans have worked out. At the same time though, I mean, it's been, if you've ever taken on one of these kind of jobs, right? Even just as a person hiring contractors, that scope or feature creep, whatever you want to call it, it continues to grow. The more you do it, and you're like, oh, well, I could just add this one little other thing and this other little thing, or we could just upgrade that or swap this out. So, I've tried to be very cognizant of that every step of the way and not go too far. Because, initially we were looking at even more than this. I'm like, oh, I could probably do like a 40 by 70 if we just do this over here and grade the land this way. And it's like, do I really need to, or even go up to 16, 20-foot walls and do all that. And I could have an entire second floor. And it's like, so there were a lot of things that came and went in terms of ideas. And I'm still not 100% sure I've landed in exactly everything that I'm going to want in the future, but I know that this is a really good base to build on, just a very echoey cave-like base, but we'll fix that. And yeah, it's, there's always other stuff you could do. Like for instance, I didn't run any Ethernet out here because at the moment the Wi-Fi is working fine. Like I have all those those Deco routers or whatever. And so I just added an extender out here and that's working great. I don't plan to really need like hardwired Ethernet, but I probably am going to want it eventually. I'm kicking myself for not doing that, especially if I'm going to be putting my office out here. And it's like, that was initially part of the plan when I was coming up with things last year, but now it kind of is, now that I see how big it is and what we could work with. And it's like, things like that, or adding water. We have water lines right out there. I can connect them in theory, just dig a trench and connect stuff, I guess. But at the moment, there is no running water out here. And there is obviously no restroom as a result. I don't plan to need that. Like, I don't mind walking like 20 steps and just right inside the door, like there's a bathroom right there. It feels kind of like it might be good to leave the building every so often instead of just being always over here 100% of the time. Like I am still working from home. I don't know. Again, things like that I might regret later on. It's like, no, I really wish I had a bathroom over there, or at least like a wash basin for doing repair projects and you know, cleaning up computers and stuff. So at the moment, I have one of those like an outdoor kind of sink or whatever hooked up to a hose, but of course it doesn't really drain anywhere great, and it's like, ew. I don't know what's gonna happen. I'm sure things will expand and change as we move on into the future and see how I work in here. I just don't know what that's gonna be yet. So, you know, if there's things that seem like, you know, that's a huge obvious oversight, it probably is. And I just didn't think about it at the time when coming up with this design. But so it goes, right? We will address things as they come up. But yeah, that pretty much is all I wanted to say in this video. I've got a building, it's coming together. It's gonna be a lot of work still to get everything put in here, but that's gonna be kind of fun in a way, you know, and invigorating, you know, just to get everything out of storage into a space that's actually gonna be fully mine and hopefully all that I need it to be. And, you know, things are gonna change, of course. Plans never go exactly as planned, but you know, we have something very awesome and amazing and something I never really thought in terms of just scope and bigness and all this kind of stuff that I thought I would have. So yeah, just wanted to say, here's what's happening in the background. And very much a thank you to everybody who has supported on Patreon and the YouTube memberships and any other way, sending things in, watching videos, sharing videos, commenting, like it all adds up, right? And it all means something. And coming out to the different shows and stuff that I do, vintage computer festivals, and I just love it all, really. I appreciate it. And it's something that I am astounded that is still able to continue going like this, to the point where, wow, this actually feasibly makes sense to do. It's insane. And all that about, you know, I just build like old computers and put wood grain on things and talk about games sometimes. It's really silly, but here we are. And I am genuinely appreciative of it. And I'm gonna make the very most of all of this and turn it into something that is, you know, I don't even know what. It could evolve into who knows what from here. So thank you very much for watching. We'll see what happens next.